Ever notice how a really good book just pulls you right in? Like you're living the story right there with the characters?
Absolutely.
I was reading this thriller the other day and it hit me. The author's use of the was just like cinematic. Every time I read the door creaked or the shadows deepened, I felt that suspense building.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how that can create that shared understanding, like a secret between the writer and the reader.
Right,
We both know which shadows we're talking about,
right.
and that makes all the difference.
It's so much more powerful than just saying a door or some shadows, you know?
Exactly. It's that specificity and that power of that. It goes way beyond fiction, too. Think about how politicians use it, the American people, the economy. It subtly implies everyone's in the same boat, facing
Yeah.
the same issues.
It's like that word, the, can actually shape how people see the world. Wow, I never thought about it like that before.
It's true. It can be a subtle form of persuasion. Now, on a completely different note, imagine that same politician needs to give very clear instructions about, say, assembling a podium. Give me the hammer. Assumes there's one obvious hammer, right?
Whereas Gimme a Hammer would have them wondering which one to grab.
Exactly. And that's where that clear distinction between the and agreeing comes in.
Okay, so the is about that laser focus, zeroing in on something specific we both have in mind.
Like focusing a camera lens.
Yeah.
A or N. On the other
Yeah.
hand, it's more like that wide shot. You're introducing something new to the scene. It's always singular, countable. You're encountering this one specific thing for the first time in the conversation.
So, like, if I was talking about that cup of tea after a long day, if I say, after a long day, a cup of tea always hits the spot, I'm talking about tea in general, like this universal comforting ritual.
Precisely. Any cup, as long as it's tea, and it's there for you at the end of a long day.
Right, it's the idea of it.
It reminds me of that example from your research. I'm bringing an apple pie.
Ooh, apple pie. Now you're speaking my language. But yeah, it's that anticipation, the possibility, not an actual pie yet.
And it has to be an apple pie, not a apple pie. Which brings us to one of the trickier aspects of articles, that a versus an dilemma.
Oh, tell me about it. I still trip up on that sometimes, even though I know all the rules. Like, you'd think history would always be a history, but I bet you'd say an important part of history, right?
You're absolutely right. And it all boils down to the sound of the word, not the actual letter.
Right.
History might start with an H, but it sounds like it begins with a vowel sound, hence an.
So it's like that other example we have, a United States senator. Even though United starts with U, it sounds like a Y, so it's A, not N.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got it. And that distinction is so important because it directly affects how smoothly your English flows, both when you're writing and speaking.
Speaking of things that can trip you up, this next part really threw me for a loop. The whole idea of uncountable nouns. What's the point of a noun if you can't even, I don't know, count it? Honestly, when I first learned about uncountable nouns, it was like, whoa, my whole world just shifted. Like everything I thought I knew about nouns just flew out the window.
It's a real brain teaser for sure.
It is.
But if you think about it, words like advice or information, they're not really things you count, are they?
Not really. No.
You wouldn't go up to a librarian and ask for like 5 informations on a topic, would you?
Haha, I guess not. Though now I'm picturing someone trying that and the librarian's just like, "Ah, what?
Exactly.
It's like asking for, I don't know, like two happinesses or something.
That's a great way to put it. Those words just don't work that way. And it's not just those abstract ideas either. Think about furniture or luggage. They're like collective terms.
So instead of saying I need 3 luggages for this trip, it's I need 3 pieces of luggage.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
you're zooming in on the specific, countable things within that broader category.
You got it. You're shifting your perspective. And then you've got those, well, substances like water or air, where you really need a unit of measurement to count them.
Like a liter of water or a cubic meter of air. You'd never say an air, though.
Exactly. And this whole concept of uncountable nouns shows how language is shaped by our experiences. We categorize, we group things together, and sometimes you need those extra words like units of measurement to be super specific.
So articles are like this secret code that unlocks all these different levels of meaning. It's really kind of cool when you think about it. But, and this is where things get really interesting for me at least, you're telling me that sometimes we just don't use articles at all. We just skip right over them.
We do.
So we've got the for laser focus, a dimion for bringing in something new, and then sometimes we just ditch articles completely. It's like English grammar took a vacation or something.
I like that. English grammar on vacation.
Yeah.
But it's more like we're using a shortcut.
Hmm.
We do it all the time without realizing it. Like that example you had, let's have dinner at home tonight. You don't need to say at dinner because it's already clear what you mean.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But then there are those other cases, like languages. I always overthink those
It's
ones.
a common one to trip up on,
Yeah,
for sure.
right.
So you say, I'm learning Spanish, not I'm learning this Spanish.
Yeah.
It's like the language itself is understood.
Right.
And it's the same with those big ideas like love or peace.
So they fought for freedom, not they fought for the freedom.
Exactly. It's like those ideas are so huge, so universal, they don't need an article to define them.
It's almost like adding the would make them smaller somehow, less powerful.
That's a really great way to put it. And the more you pay attention to these little details in language, the more you realize how much they color how we see the world.
This whole deep dive has been eye-opening. It's like I knew the rules, but now I get the why behind them, you know what I mean?
And that's what's so cool about language. It's always changing. But these patterns, these choices we make with articles, they shape how we communicate.
Absolutely. So, for our listeners who are probably thinking, wow, that's a lot to take in about articles, what's the key thing you want them to remember?
Don't be afraid to play around with it. Pay attention to how articles are used, whether you're reading a book, an article, even just listening to a conversation. The more you notice those patterns, the more natural they'll become in your own writing and speaking.
It's like training your ear, like a musician learning to hear the different notes in a chord.
That's a great analogy. And, you might even start to appreciate those little words, in a whole new light.
They're small but mighty. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Until next time, keep those ears open and stay curious.